All right. First things first. I would love to know how you decided that you wanted to create content related to giving dating advice.
It all started many years ago when I was married to a woman who really wasn't right for me. I used to be really bad at this. If you grow up a ginger in Western society, Sean, you're not considered the pinnacle of male attractiveness.
Oh,
um,
oh,
I was always extroverted. 80% of the clients that I work with are introverted, but I was always extroverted. That didn't really help me, though, with meeting the right type of women. So I went through a marriage that was a really bad experience, not because she was a bad person at all. We just weren't right for each other. And then I was working for a big tech company at the time in Dublin, and then I met somebody who basically ended up sitting next to me in this huge office, who's been in this dating attraction space for 8 or 9 or 10 years at that point. He could have been a coach himself. He just never wanted to. He never wanted that spotlight, so to speak. And so I started learning from him. I eventually ended the marriage, which long backstory. But basically started going out, got a ridiculous amount of experience over the coming years, learned from psychologists and psychotherapists, because I realized that most people get their dating advice either from the mainstream that tells them just be kind, just be a good listener, just be yourself, which is all true, but it's not sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. Or the other end of the extreme is pickup artistry, which can go into the direction of manipulation, lying, and deception. It's a bit gimmicky. Not saying that everybody in that space is like that at all. Some are amazing. But I realized I wanted to be very authentic, but not just authentic, but also real. And a lot of that is not necessarily politically correct. And so I started a coaching business because I always liked helping people. Back in university, I was teaching karate because I always liked helping people with, I just liked working with people. That was something that I really liked. I always liked connecting with people. And then I started making content on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Yeah.
wow, that's awesome. That was so much more in depth, like than I anticipated. Like that was almost like a calling. It sounded like.
Yeah.
Would you say, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you first got for your first marriage?
23.
23. All right, interesting. But you must have learned a ton from that experience.
I was actually speaking with a couple of friends earlier because we're doing a video shoot because we're creating content today for social media. And he was saying it was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to you. And I said, yeah, there was a lot of pain involved. There was a lot of suffering involved because I didn't even know what was wrong with me at the time because I had all these symptoms show up. Stress, predominantly. Because if you don't listen to what's going on inside of you, if you don't listen to the needs that you have, then there'll be symptoms. Stress, anxiety. Or a lot of, for other men, they become passive aggressive because their needs aren't being met. And so there was a lot of suffering involved, but it was absolutely the best thing that could have ever happened. And I definitely learned what I didn't want. And then it took me quite some time to figure out what I do want and then how to be able to attract and find someone, for example, like Fernanda, and to maintain a relationship on eye level in a way where you can still authentically express yourself.
Great. That's awesome. So you talked about being extroverted. So did the whole process of dating kind of come natural to you?
Not at all. I used to, I was pretty confident in general because I was doing martial arts, because I went to the gym, but with girls, not at all. I will remember before I got into any of this, many, many years ago, I was in a nightclub with a friend of mine in Berlin. And it's not necessarily to go to bars and clubs at all if you want to find the right person, but it's a place to go. And so I'm standing there and he's dancing with a girl because he had a bit more swag. He was a bit more cool, bit of a cool dude than me. And because I was like fun and extroverted, but I didn't have the swag. I wasn't cool at all.
Yeah.
And so he's dancing with a girl, and I'm there standing there, metaphorically speaking, with my. Can I use curse words or no?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I was standing there, metaphorically speaking, with my dick in my hand, and not able to do anything. So I see a girl that I want to go and approach, and it took me, I swear to God, an hour or two and 2 gluten-free beers to finally be able to walk over and say hi. This was in Germany, in a German nightclub. In Germany, people speak German. So I walk up to this girl in a German nightclub, and I ask her in English, because I was so insecure, "Excuse me, where are the toilets?" And she looks at me like, that look was enough to give me the greatest sensation of embarrassment I ever experienced. Blood rushing into my head. I feel like everybody's staring at me. My heart is beating, palms are sweating, and I just wanted to walk out of there. It was nothing. Nowadays, it's a congruence test, and you handle it. If she's actually not interested, you leave the conversation, absolutely, and you're respectful, of course. But back in the day, I had no framework on how to progress, how I wasn't confident at all. My communication skills sucked, so it didn't come natural to me at all. But it's just a skill set that anybody can learn because it's really just confidence, communication, and clarity.
Confidence, communication, and clarity. Oh, that's great. And that's great. I love that genuine honesty of telling that story because so many people can relate to stuff like that, especially, you know, trying to work up the courage to talk to someone. And it does take a couple, throwing back a couple beers to possibly do that. But I like that. I like the honesty. So let's say a man's, let's say like 23, fresh out of university, and gets a decent job, making like 70 grand a year, wants to start dating. What advice would you give to that man?
Use online dating and real life interactions. It's not either or. I think online dating is absolutely effective if you use Tinder, Bumble, Match.com, Hinge, Facebook dating. You get on there, you take it serious, you build your profile, you present yourself in the most effective way, you show you have good pictures, you take it serious, you learn how these apps work, and then you also learn to approach women in real life in an effective and respectful way. Because I don't know how you can call yourself a man if you don't have that skill set. And it's not that, oh, you're not a man. It's not a simplified statement as, oh, he just doesn't have the balls. I wasn't able to do it either. It's a skill set. But I think you should develop the skill set. If you see somebody, I mean, if you have a son or a daughter at some point, I know if you're talking to somebody who's 23 right now, that may not be what you're looking for at that point in time. But at some point, do you want to be able to teach? If you have a daughter, you're going to teach her different things. But if you're having a son, then you want to be able to pass on that skill set. And also, if you see somebody, this could be a future wife. This could be a future girlfriend, right? Or even just a mutually beneficial short-term win-win situation. You get what I'm saying? That opportunity that you're just letting slip by, why would you do that? So just get a lot of options. Doesn't mean you have to have intimacy with all of those people, but you got to have more women interested in you. The most important thing is abundance. As a man, you must go through a phase of experiencing factual abundance. You have to go through a phase of realizing what it's like to have more women interested in you than you want. Not so that you're going to date them all. It's not about that. But your brain just needs to realize, wow, I am desired. And you're going to have to go through a shit ton of rejection, and that's fine. It means nothing. Getting rejected by a random stranger you didn't even know up until that day means actually nothing. So get out there, start taking action. And even if you just start with a process called progressive desensitization, something that I help my clients with, because people have different amounts of fear. Everybody's approach anxiety, unless you're a complete psychopath or a sociopath, everybody's approach anxiety. Some people are able to do approaches, some people can't. You can start with just walking by people in a shopping mall and saying, hey, hello, nice to meet you. Then you walk up to somebody and ask for directions. You see a pretty lady, you walk up to her and you ask her, excuse me, 2 seconds. Where is Aldi or Lidl supermarket?
Right.
Where do you live, Sean?
I live in Massachusetts in America.
So you probably have Whole Foods or something like that, right?
Yep, of course.
Okay, where's Whole Foods or where's this or where's that? You can ask for directions. You can ask for the time.
Right.
Just to desensitize yourself to that. Then once that gets boring, you go one step up. You go one step up. One step up. And then you can walk up to her and you give her a compliment. And walk away. And then you can walk up to her and give her a compliment and continue the conversation. Or you can walk up to her, just ask her, oh, did you see what happened? That poor old lady fell down. Or that dog barked really loudly. Use an indirect opener. And then you build interest. It's just a skill set. The most important thing you have to understand is if you suck with women, and most people do, most men have to understand, I currently suck with women. I'm not good at this because I haven't developed the skill set. I haven't developed the right mindset. It's just a skill set. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not good at this. It's just a skill set.
Right on.
And if you grow up a ginger, this is considered a genetic deficiency in the West. Yes, some women in Latin America, they might really like that and stuff. I'm aware of that. And you can find amazing women everywhere. And there's women in almost all countries who like this thing. But on average, I was not considered the cool dude growing up. So it's really just a skill set.
Yeah. But you're the cool dude now, for sure.
Well, for some people, some still think like, hey, I swear to God, this is so funny, man. When the number one hate comment I get on TikTok or Instagram, not Instagram so much, but on TikTok, if they disagree. So, for example, I made a video, six mistakes that you can make on the first date or something.
Yeah.
And then somebody goes, point number 7, being a ginger.
Oh my goodness.
The number one hate.
Dude.
And some just literally just comment, you're a ginger. And like it's the worst thing you can say to a person. You know?
Oh my goodness.
Some people may think I'm cool, plenty of people don't, but that's fine.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, some people got nothing better to do. But I love the point of making small incremental steps. That can really go a long way. And also the point of, if they don't go out there and experience that, they're just going to latch on to the first thing they get. And, that's probably going to end in disaster.
Yeah, and there's so much pain that men experience. It was the same thing with my ex-wife. I stumbled into it. Most men stumble upon the relationship by accident, and they don't choose the person consciously. And the probability that you have a high degree of compatibility with that person, if you haven't chosen her out of a variety of different options, if you haven't understood who am I, where am I going, who do I actually want, and written down in detail your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, your deal breakers, is very low. So there's a huge amount of suffering that both men and women experience, first and foremost, as a result of a lack of compatibility. You have to create you cannot create compatibility, but you have to make sure you're with somebody who's compatible and attract that person, obviously, through communication, and understanding the best practices of attraction. But yeah, don't just jump into the first relationship. It's complete nonsense. You're going to suffer.
Right. Yeah, 100%. What do you see as the biggest mistake men make? In the aspect of dating.
There's so many. God. Do you want to ask about something? Because I could give you a lot, but maybe if you have a specific direction that you'd like me to go in.
Yeah. So we'll say at a bar, and a man sees a woman. She's by herself. Actually, we'll say she's with a friend, and he goes up to talk to her. What is something he should not say?
What's something he should not say? Hey, how are you? What's your job? Do you come here often? That you definitely shouldn't say. Don't bore her to death. Obviously, you can ask her what her job is later on, but don't ask for her name straight away. Don't ask for her age straight away. Don't ask her. These generic interview-style questions bore her to death. Because remember, when she tells you something like that, she can only tell you something she already knows. Therefore, it's inherently boring. And some people say, and you see these mainstream newspaper articles, like, just ask her this question and she'll fall in love with you. There's not a single question you could possibly ask her that's going to make her fall in love with you. It doesn't exist. It's way more about oversharing, learning to overshare your personality authentically and effectively. So, for example, if you're in a bar or club, and a lot of people don't even like going to bars and clubs. Like a lot of clients that come to me, they're professionals, business owners, men with professional careers, a bit nerdy, a bit introverted. They don't really like going there. It's not necessary to find someone, but it is a fun place. I personally enjoy it. You do have to understand the environment. If you go to a bar or club, why are women there? To have fun, not to be logical. 9 to 5 on a Monday to Friday. They're in their head. They're logical like all of us. I used to think back in the day that bars and clubs are completely retarded. And that it's just people acting stupid and I would never want to go there until I understood what they actually are. Have you ever watched Joseph Campbell? Oh, no, who was it? Was it Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, the documentary? Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
It's, I hope I'm not butchering this, but he's basically, I think, George Lucas talked to Joseph Campbell back in the day, who wrote the book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, where he talks about the hero's journey and stuff. And Star Wars, I believe, was largely based on that. So it's a journey that everybody goes through. It's a personal development. It's a concept largely used in personal development. And this idea that, man, I keep forgetting. Like, I gotta get a brain check, I think, one of these days, because I keep forgetting my points. I was on a podcast the other day and I went on this rant. But the problem is also I go on these tangents and then I lose it. Sorry. Joseph Campbell, Hero with 1,000 Faces, Power of Myth. Where was I going? Where was I? Because I go on these second and third degree order tangents. And
we were talking about dating and approaching women at the bar, and you said don't talk about ask her where her job is and ask her.
Thanks. See, this is the problem. I go 3, 4, 5 layers away from it, and sometimes I'm in a YouTube video, and then I'm like, it worked, and then I come all the way back. Sometimes it doesn't. I just epically failed right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, no worries.
So The reason I talked about it is in that documentary, Joseph Campbell talks about the power of myths and rituals. And back in the day, we were all dancing around a fire and singing songs and going through these rituals. And when we look at that, we're like, oh, it seems a bit strange, but that was an accepted ritual back in the day. And when we're in bars and clubs, that's basically what we're doing. We're dancing around the fire and we're going through all these rituals, because partially it's connecting, partially it's just you wanting to be present and having fun. And so the reason I mentioned that, it's actually worth checking out The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. It's a 3-hour documentary. It may still be on YouTube. I'm not sure. That's where I saw it 5 or 10 years ago. I'm not sure. So bars and clubs are a place where women go to have fun. So you have to learn to communicate at the level of emotion. And there's many ways in which that manifests. And one is, please stop asking these boring questions. Just overshare. Be more fun. Always be respectful. But be silly, be lighthearted, be teasy. Another very practical piece of advice for guys in bar or club: you have to learn to project your voice. You have to speak loud. If she doesn't, most guys, they can't. It starts with volume. If she doesn't hear you, she has very little tolerance for a lack of volume. If she doesn't understand you, she'll, off the open, she gives you a second chance. If she doesn't understand you again, the interaction is immediately fucked. It's immediately done. So you need to be able to project your voice, not like screaming like a crazy person, but you have to be 10, 20, 30, 40% louder than the rest. She can clearly hear you. You don't have to lean over the whole time. Yes, you can lean in, but really important, if it's so loud that you actually have to lean in, then you have to back off. You want to have this pressure on, pressure off situation. Not that you're actually putting pressure on her, but when you're talking to her, you're creating a degree, you're getting closer. So then you want to step back. Most guys, they're just coming closer and closer and closer, and it's really uncomfortable for her. So when you're talking to her, you're talking to her ear, boom, and then you back out. That could be a 2-hour conversation in and of itself. But you want to understand that it's a place where women go to have fun. So if you can contribute to fun and playful emotions, not her being stuck in her head or having logical conversations, you're probably going to be able to win in that environment. And winning in that environment means you're going to be able to exchange a number. You're going to be able to exchange Instagram. Maybe you're going to spend some of the night or all of the night with somebody, depending on personal preferences. Now, again, it's not necessary to go to bars and clubs to find people. You can learn to approach women during the day. You can use online dating. But it is a fun place worth exploring.
Great. And I'm glad that you figured out the analogy, because that makes a lot of sense. And I'll have to check out that documentary.
Got completely where the fuck was I going?
Oh, I love that. So in the aspect of that same scenario, or just not that same scenario, but a man's just in a bar and he's just kind of like vibing. Should a man wait for like a choosing signal from a woman before approaching?
Amazing question. Fuck no. Absolutely not.
No.
She may not even, she smiled. I'm going to wait for women to smile at me. She may not even be aware of your existence, bro. She hasn't smiled at me. There have been plenty of times where I met women who I then continued to spend time with over several weeks and months who didn't even look at me. They didn't look at me. And then I walked up to them. Yes, if a woman smiles at you or holds eye contact, that's the easiest thing in the world, and you have to go and walk over. And by the way, here's a very simple one, that you can use. Feel free to steal this. If she holds a lot of eye contact with you, you can simply walk over to her and say, excuse me 2 seconds. If you keep looking at me like that, you're going to make me feel like a piece of meat. How dare you? That's fun. But don't wait for her to look at you. She may not even be aware of your existence.
100%. Yeah. That it takes a lot for a woman to like be aware for you like that, especially in a crowded environment.
And by the way, for her to choose you out of all the other people without knowing anything, she might actually like you if she gets to know you, but you have to project your personality. You have to communicate your personality. The second you approach a woman and she's uncomfortable, you leave her alone immediately. 100%. Right? She gets to decide how long she wants to stay in the conversation. But you have to make her the offer. It's very important that you make her the offer and you walk over there and you communicate your personality so she gets an insight into who you are as a man. Because just understand, nonverbals are so much more important. Who you are, your voice, your personality. She may look at you and be like, he's all right, but then she gets to know you and she's like, wow.
Yeah.
That's a different caliber of man.
Right on. And for someone that's, say, like I was saying, like 23, does, being more established in life have an effect? It's easier to attract a woman if you're say, people talk about this all the time, say like you're 30, a little bit more established. I know that's a big topic in the dating world. What are your opinions on that?
Here, the truth is twofold. One, yes, it's easier. It actually gets easier, but just because something is easy doesn't mean just because something isn't easy doesn't mean it's not possible. So absolutely, it's possible to meet women if you're 20, 21, whatever the legal age is, right? 20, 21, 22, 23. You can go out, you can meet girls. No problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah, are a lot of women gonna like to date older guys? Yes, some don't. Really, there's no excuse. No matter what age you are as a man, if you're an adult, there's no excuse for you to not have the dating or relationship life that you want. It's just an excuse because you haven't committed yourself to the process. Does it get a little bit easier? Yes. But trust me, I know most of my clients are between 30 and 50. And yeah, some of them already get some options and have some dates and they want to find the right one. But plenty of them, I don't know, 90% of men aren't good at this. 9 out of 10 men are not great at this. So it's just a skill set. Just because you're magically 30, just because you happen to have money, you have a job, you can still mess up with women. It's only, yeah, you're going to stumble into someone, she's going to stick with you, and then you're going to end up having a divorce or two, and it's going to cost you real hard. You have a lot more to lose at that point in time than earlier. So you better figure that shit out sooner rather than later.
Awesome. I have a couple of analytics that or statistics that I'd like to share and get your opinion on in the dating world. One of them you just touched on, but I'd actually like to say that one for last. So nearly half of adults say dating has become harder in recent years. Would you agree with that?
No.
No? You think it about the same or easier?
Whether it's easy or hard, it used to be much harder for me than it is now as time has progressed.
Yeah.
How do you determine, what are the objective metrics that we use to determine that dating has become harder? Now, you can make an argument for it or against it. The reason I'm saying no immediately is because I believe in personal power and empowerment, and therefore believing that something is hard, is that really going to serve me? No. So, well, it's hard. No. Do you want, who said this? Was this David Goggins or I don't know who said this? Are you going to pray for life to give you a lighter load or for stronger shoulders to be able to carry a heavier load? So, but yeah, you can absolutely make a case that it has gotten harder, and the way in which it has gotten harder is social media. Women now have a lot more options, and they're aware that they have more options, so you need to compete more. Yes, in that sense, you can say it's gotten objectively harder. But guess what? You also have Instagram available to yourself. So if you build an amazing Instagram, which is, for example, one of the things that I have my clients with, and I can share a couple of really important tips here for people right now in a second. It's super powerful because Instagram is the #1 dating marketing machine. If you want to find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, you don't need to use Instagram. But it's going to cut the time into a third or into a tenth that it would otherwise take you. Because if you meet somebody in real life and you just exchange numbers, a number was special back in the day. Now it's not. Now, if you meet somebody in Starbucks, you might have a really awesome formative interaction and her emotions spike. And these emotions die off after a couple of days. But if she sees your Instagram, and this is not about faking anything or pretending to be someone you're not. This is not about objective flexing, but showing lifestyle, social proof, status, and showing yourself in the company of desirable people. Really showing that you live a good life. I'm not talking about the money side of things. I'm talking about portraying yourself, also professional pictures, making sure you actually look good in the pictures. Other people like you. If you build it the right way, you have an amazing tool available to yourself that you didn't have. So is it useful to believe that dating has gotten harder? I don't think it's useful. Is it objectively true? It may or may not be, but it doesn't matter because whether something is hard or not should not be a determining factor as to whether I'm going to engage in the pursuit of the mastery of given activity.
Right on. That's that mindset is very important. And,
yeah.
That was a great explanation as to why. We don't have to delve into this. We kind of just did, but I'm going to share this statistic anyway. So 51% of males 18 to 29 are single, and males 30 to 49 only 27% are single. Mm-hmm. So that's like almost like a half basically, and that was kind of what I was talking about in the aspect of when a man gets older. Does dating become easier? But but
a lot of them also just settle for something.
Yes.
It doesn't
Oh,
necessarily
that's a
become
great
easier.
point.
They're just like, oh yeah, well, Suzanne lives in the same neighborhood. And, sure, look, they just settle. A lot of them just settle, and that's why they're unhappy. So just because somebody's in a relationship doesn't mean they won the game.
No, that's
You could be in a
very,
relationship
very
and
good point.
utterly unhappy. You could be in a relationship and half depressed. Just because you're together doesn't mean you're winning. Remember, the relationship is supposed to serve the people, not the other way around. And once you reach a point where you realize either we've never had compatibility to begin with, which is true for a lot of people, or we've really, really, really tried everything and it doesn't work, if you then stay in it, then you're suffering unnecessarily. Jack Kornfield says, we as human beings were very, very loyal to our suffering.
Oh, interesting. That's great. All right, last statistic that you touched on a little bit. So men are afraid of marriage because 50% of them end in divorce and 80% of those divorces are initiated by women. What would you say about that to those men about that fear?
Get a prenup.
Get a prenup?
Get a prenup and talk to lawyers, because who am I to dictate what people should do or what they shouldn't do?
Right.
Do I believe you need the government involved to have an amazing relationship? No. Does marriage in the conventional way where you do involve government still make sense for a lot of people? Of course. I don't care. Makes no difference to me. Get married, don't get married. But if you get married, sign a prenup, for sure. And the prenup is not so that if you spend time with an amazing woman for 15 years and she supports you, make sure she's well taken care of, right? But I made a video, reels on Instagram, about how many billions Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk had so many divorces, but like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, how many billions and billions they lost. Do I think that's appropriate? Absolutely not. Should their ex-wives be well taken care of? Of course. Billions and billions and billions, though? I don't know. You know?
Right.
So yeah, just get a prenup. Don't be afraid of long-term commitment, because long-term commitment is absolutely beautiful. I believe that just hooking up with random women forever is going to leave most people utterly unfulfilled. That being said, if you do have a long-term commitment, you can have a marriage without involving the government, or you are going to involve the government and you can have a prenup, whatever you do. Not getting a prenup, it's just stupid, in my opinion.
That's a great
And by the way, sorry to interrupt you, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, go right ahead.
And that's that. People say, yeah, but if you sign a prenup, then it means you never believed in the success of the marriage anyway. You anticipated failure from the get-go. No, that doesn't mean that at all. But I'm a human being, and I understand that there's contingencies in life that I cannot control. By the way, if we sign this prenup, best case scenario, we'll never need it. We'll bury it somewhere, and we'll never touch it ever again. And it's awesome, and it doesn't hurt. Now, if shit does hit the fan, we'll both be very happy, or at least you as a man are going to be very happy that you did sign it. There's zero downside. Because just because you consider a what-if scenario and you take precautions, that does not mean that you don't ascribe a high degree of certainty to the success of the relationship. That doesn't mean that you're not all in. That's just my opinion. I may be wrong with that, and other people have others. Just my opinion.
That's dead on, and that's something that men need to hear 100%, because that does diminish the fear. Like that's pretty much cancels it out. Along that similar lines of fear, we talked about social media, and with that, women having more options, and there's also talk about Western women not being as traditional as they once were. I want to know if you heard of this term called passport bros movement. No. Have you heard that? All right, so I just wanted to get your opinion about it, because I just found this out as I was researching for this podcast, and it's about men looking for a more traditional woman. So they're going to foreign countries to find a wife, and then bringing them back to America. What do you think of that? Do you think traditional women, you can still find a traditional woman in the Western world? I'm not sure how it is in Ireland compared to America, but what do you think about that?
So I'm going to preface what I'm saying with, I'm going to be careful what I say, because I have no interest in getting deplatformed.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna whatever I'm going to say is going to be honest, but I'm not going to necessarily need to share all of my personal preferences and opinions and values here. That being said, yeah, you can absolutely. You don't. This whole Thailand thing. I'm like, like, do you need to go to Latin America or Eastern Europe to find a wife? No, absolutely not. Can you do that? And can you meet amazing women there? Oh, of course, 100%. If you live in America, you can just find, and if you happen to be, because I don't care, right? Of whatever spectrum of the political end you're on, I don't care. My job is to help you get what you want. But if you happen to be a little bit more conservative, and you want a traditional wife, somebody who appreciates family and who doesn't need to become the next VP of her company, like somebody who you can really build something with, who has traditional values, then you can find that woman. You can just look for that on dating apps. You just need to master online dating, or you can just meet women in real life. There's plenty of traditional women in the US. Has the total amount as well as the percentage decreased? Yes. Are there still plenty? Yes. Just remember, there's 150 million women in the US, 15 to 30 million in your age group alone. 15 to 30 million across the US in your age group alone. You only need one.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. 100%. So, with the qualities that a man should have to attract a woman, would you say confidence is the number one?
Confidence, yes. Communication skills and understanding the dynamics of attraction, 100%.
Oh,
now, where does confidence come from? There's two sources primarily of confidence. One is competence. If you're good at something, if you really understand how to never run out of things to say, how to do texting, how to build attraction, if you know the how, that competence breeds confidence. So the better you get at the skill, the more you dedicate yourself, the more confident you get. Now, confidence also, well, you could add a third component, which is the beliefs you have about yourself, the beliefs you have. Do I believe I'm a worthy man? Do I believe I have a lot to bring to the table? An exercise anybody here should do is write down 20 reasons why it would be the greatest gift on earth to a woman who has compatible with you to be your life partner. What are 20 reasons? Not 19, not 17, 20 reasons. Write down 20 reasons why it would be amazing for her. What is it that you bring to the relationship? And value comes in a variety of different ways. I'm not just talking about finances here. That's one. The other source of confidence is actually state. Tony Robbins talks about that, Gunther Schmidt. Understanding that there's a certain neurochemistry associated with confidence. You can learn to control your mental and emotional state by taking care of your physiology. Even just exercising, lifting weights in a reasonable way where you don't hurt your joints, but where you do have, and you train your legs because that boosts T as well, testosterone, that makes you more confident. That's one. Neurologically speaking, getting enough sleep makes you more confident. Anything that reduces cortisol and anxiety, not completely to zero, but to cortisol and adrenaline reduces anxiety. And sleep, nutrition, all these things, the physiological component. How you use your body language is not just an expression of the current state of confidence you're feeling, but it also reinforces it. If you change it, Milton Erickson founded hypnotherapy. If you first use your body the way you would if you felt confident, you're going to start feeling confident. Everybody, this is a really cool thing. Gunther Schmidt, one of Germany's best psychologists, in my opinion, he gave this presentation many years ago, and I've been fortunate enough to learn from. I'm not a psychologist or a psychotherapist, not pretending to be, but I've been able to learn a lot from him over seminars and online as well. And he always says, how you're going, that's how it's going. How you're going, that's how it's going. Which means when you walk, we're never neutral. We're always hypnotizing ourselves. We're not hypnotized to the extent that some magician comes and he turns us into a rabbit on stage or some nonsense like that. But we're priming certain mental and emotional states. And people need to understand that they can largely control their mental and emotional state. It's so important. Wherever you're going, the way you're using your body, the way you're swinging your shoulders, doesn't mean you need to do the Conor McGregor walking into the UFC full on. But a little bit of that. Are my shoulders hunched forward? How's my breath? Shallow. How do you walk? Whenever you walk somewhere, you can use that as a confidence-building exercise. By simply just, okay, what does Jordan Peterson say? Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Why? Well, because it, neurologically speaking, primes a different mental and emotional state. Power posing, hands up in the air, right? That increases testosterone and decreases cortisol. The way you use your body is huge. And then what do you focus on? What are your language patterns? You can control your state. And then you can do that within minutes. Within seconds and minutes, you can change your state. And if you take control of that, then you can absolutely become a way more confident person. And then confidence also, there's more sources, obviously. Then this confidence also comes from doing difficult things.
Right.
The more I do difficult things, the more I do yesterday I didn't want to go for a 5K run, but I did it. And I felt amazing afterwards. I felt amazing afterwards, one, obviously because of the physiological benefits, because my brain chemistry was changed, but also because I did the thing I didn't want to do. And it was painful. You know the pain that you get when you're running and you go through it, and then you listen to David Goggins and he tells you how amazing it is, and doing the difficult things definitely helps. But first and foremost, you should aim to develop a competence in a certain area because that's really going to make you confident.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know the Fresh and Fit podcast?
Yeah.
So Myron says that, what is it? Competence leads to accomplishments, which leads to confidence. Mm-hmm. Which is like
cool.
A variety of what what you were just saying. So that's awesome. One thing I want to say or ask, say you got the dating apps, you're going out, you're getting numbers, you're getting dates. You go out on the date. What are some red flags to look out for in a woman?
I actually filmed a video about that earlier, so they're top of mind.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I don't want to spoil it.
No, it's okay. No, I'll tell you, 100%. No problem. I'll tell you. And there's also a video on my YouTube channel where I talk about that, 11 or 12 signs that somebody's toxic. So you can find that there as well. But I'll give you some. I'll give them to as many as I actually have the list here, so I can give them to you all. I'll give them all.
Oh, awesome!
2 seconds. In my notes because
when you're
the Apple pitch. If you're on Apple, then it syncs the notes from your MacBook to your phone. 2 seconds. Toxic. So I got them all here because there's quite a few. Okay, cool. So I got the list here. So some I remember because they're top of mind. And some I obviously remember because I teach this. But I don't think I'd be able to remember all 11 right now. So the first one, if you actually go by the list, is easily offended. And that's really important. If a woman is easily offended, it means she's not secure within herself. If she can't take a joke, that means she's not secure. That will manifest in a whole lot of problems. If she's easily offended, that ties into the second point, she often misinterprets things in a negative way. So you're calling me fat? Are you saying that? If her natural proclivity is to assume negative or hurtful intent, run far and fast. The number one qualification criteria that you should look for is high self-esteem, or somebody who's happy, somebody who's secure within herself. In other words, does she assume positive intent or not? Most of the time. Should we always assume positive intent? Obviously not. Some people are evil, or some people are genuinely trying to hurt us, and sometimes we need to question other people's intents, of course. By the way, these red flags apply equally to men. They apply equally to men. Right? So if we give advice to women, same thing. But I'm just speaking from men's perspective here. And I don't think there's such a thing as a toxic person. We've all acted toxic at times. There's people who are really crazy that you should stay far away from, obviously. But more so, and the funny thing is with this whole toxic thing, everybody says, well, she's toxic, they're toxic. Well, have I never been toxic? What about myself? Where have I acted whenever somebody says, oh, well, these are red flags, BPD, narcissism, it's like, when have I done this? Whenever we hear something like that, we should reflect upon ourselves. When have I done that? Not to be hard on yourself, but just simply to aim to be a better person. I don't want to let this happen anymore. I don't want to, we're all aware of our character flaws, and the more we can get rid of them, the more we can become a better person. But it's important that we understand that we've all been not nice at times. Now, obviously, there's some people who live there, and I think you and I, we can probably agree. I think I'm a really, really good person, but we've all made mistakes, and we should aim to never let those happen again. But then, that being said, flipping it around is, again, easily offended, misinterpreting things in a negative way. That's so huge. These two alone, if the guys who are listening to this simply refuse to end up in a relationship with a woman who possess these two character traits, they save themselves from a whole lot of unnecessary suffering. Third one is guilt. She's trying to make you feel guilty, working with guilt to get an outcome. So, for example, you want to go out with the boys, you want to go out with your male friends, or you're going to be on a business trip. And she says, yeah, well, I'm just going to be here at home and wait. Now, sometimes women are going to do this in a playful way. If she does it in a teasy way, that's okay. You give her a lovey cuddler. But Or a different example is she asks you to do a favor, and you say, no, I'd rather not do that. And she says, well, okay. That's toxic shit. Again, it can all be playful, but it's the overarching pattern. That's not nice. Trying to get, and we're all trying to influence each other. But by the way, Sean, do you know the difference between manipulation and influence?
Manipulation and influence. One's positive, one's negative.
True, that's one characteristic. Yeah. What else?
I have no idea.
Because in physics, I'm not a physicist, but I have a friend, he got his master's in Germany, a guy that I was training a lot of martial arts with. He said, if you throw a ball and you try to shoot another object at the ball while it's in the air, then you're trying to manipulate the curve or the trajectory of the ball. In physics, and I may be completely wrong with this, I'm not a physicist, guys.
Yeah.
But I think the word manipulation and influence is used interchangeably in physics. To manipulate the curve of the ball is to change.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what that means.
Yeah.
Right? So
right.
Where's the difference? Well, it's definitely not the same in social dynamics, because if I say, I'm going to manipulate you, Sean, or I'm going to influence you, you have a different feeling associated to that. So one is honesty. And nobody's perfect, but are we trying our best to be as honest as we possibly can almost all the time?
Yeah.
Right? That's one. And the other one is, so basically, if you're honest, you're not manipulating. That's one. Or if your intent is on point. Because we're all trying to influence each other all the time. Parents are trying to influence their children. I'm trying to influence people right now to change their behavior in a way that's positive for them. Now, are we all selfish partially? Do we all have partially selfish needs? Of course. I believe we as human beings are partially selfish and partially selfless. 100%. But we're not just selfish. Some people are way too selfish. And the people who manipulate, they're trying to influence other people's behavior to change it regardless of how it affects them, as long as they can derive a personal benefit from it.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense.
So guilt is manipulation because you're changing the other person's behavior regardless of how you're getting them there, or regardless of how the end outcome is going to affect them. That's one. The next one is controlling behavior. Is she really trying to control you in a lot of ways? And that's not good. I don't think men should be trying to control women. Women shouldn't be trying to control men. You should just find a natural degree of overlap on how you want to live your life and the activities you want to pursue and the boundaries you set for each other, aka male friends or some nonsense. Gotta be on the same page there, right?
Yeah.
Now, So, for example, this whole male friends thing, I think, again, we can. Do you want me to go into that real quick or not?
Yeah, for sure.
Because most men, it's funny, right? Women actually think men just want to be friends with them. And are there some instances where that's genuinely the case? Of course. You can only, as a man, be friends with a woman, I believe, if you're not attracted to her and if your needs are met.
I agree, 100%.
For how many is that actually true? 1 out of 1,000? 1 out of 10,000?
Yeah.
But he's just my friend. He wants to fuck you.
Yeah.
He really does.
100%.
And the second he gets a chance, he will. The second you let him, he will. Right?
Yep.
Oh, no, but he wants to be my friend. If he's flamboyantly gay, then you can hang out with him.
Yep,
and this is not about me dictating it. This is where we come to controlling. I don't want to control. This is my preference. I would never, if Fernanda had the desire, or Fernanda was a woman who has the desire to have a lot of male friends, I would not want to be in a relationship with her and tell her, don't do that. Because who am I to control somebody else's life? I don't want to do that. That being said, I'm going to find a woman who naturally doesn't have the desire to have a lot of close male friends or any for that matter. You
100%.
see that? I don't want to control, because then you become the tyrant. Because the infantile or the dark side or the shadow side of the king is the tyrant. And if you become the tyrant in the relationship, you're going to start hurting people. So you don't want to exhibit that. Now, I do believe male friends are bullshit largely. You can have friends, but you'll never have the same type of friendship with a woman that you would with a man. Can you have female friends? Of course, I have female friends. Yeah, that's fine. But I genuinely don't want anything from them because my needs are met. You know, and even, by the way, but John, so for example, let's say Sarah has a friend who's John, and John is in a relationship with a different woman. No, John isn't interested in me, he's already in a relationship. Yeah, as if that's a determining factor. If John isn't happy in his relationship, he'll try to hit it up with you the second he gets a chance, you know?
Yeah, so true. And it's even worse if it's like an ex or something like that. Like, that's a major red flag.
And this is where you have to find agreements, because I do not believe in controlling people or telling women what to do. And women shouldn't be telling men what to do either. You got to find somebody who has a natural degree of overlap, and then you have to communicate and set boundaries and find agreement. But finding agreement is much easier if you have compatibility to begin with. Most conflicts most men and women had could have been avoided if they had higher degrees of compatibility in their relationships. That's one. And then the next one, that's before a private conversation. I have to skip that. The next one is judgment. If she judges you a lot, if you feel like she's just very judgmental of who you are, that's a red flag. Verbal insults, that's not good, obviously. But like, how many people tolerate that? There's so many men who tolerate verbal insults. I would never insult Fernanda, ever, right? Mm-hmm. Like, playfully, you can say something like, you can playfully tease each other, right? And have like a playful verbal insults. That's fine. Right. But actually verbally insulting someone with the intent of hurting them, that doesn't fly. She gets to do that once. And then if she does it again, then, hey, I think this doesn't make sense for us. I wish you all the best. This relationship is over, effective immediately. The next one is unreasonable jealousy. Should she be... Let me tell you something. If your woman is not jealous at all, you're in trouble. But if she's too jealous, that can also be a problem. Because then she's insecure and it's going to make your life a living hell. So unreasonable jealousy. Now you say, what is unreasonable? Well, that would take a little bit too long to explain. And it's also a little bit individual. Then the next one is trying to make you jealous by flirting with other men. I wouldn't tolerate that, and it's way too common. That's basically the last one. Number 10 is trying to make you jealous in a variety of different ways, and then number 11 is physical violence. And it seems crazy to even mention that, but both men, a lot of women are victims of physical violence in relationships. A lot of men also are victims of physical violence in relationships, and they tolerate that shit because of a sunk cost fallacy in essence, and because they believe, I'll never find someone like her. I don't want to lose that person. They have that fear. They're attached, and they couldn't imagine themselves meeting their own need for love and connection in a variety of other ways. In other words, with other people, through friends, family members, or other potential partners.
Right on. Yeah. Appreciate you sharing that. Sure. And on the reverse, I know you already kind of touched on it. Can you touch on it again of the green flags? Obviously, like, you know, a good relationship with like family would be one, and what other ones would
and
be,
that's not a necessary one, I would say, because it is often a good indicator, but sometimes a woman can be a really good woman and she just had crazy bad parents.
Yeah.
So not always. I would not use that as a immediate disqualification. Because sometimes she may have just had real bad parents, and the healthiest thing she could have ever done is to separate herself from them and to end the relationship. Most of the time, though, it is a good indicator if she has a good relationship with her parents. Because sometimes there's also the case that she doesn't have a good relationship with her parents because she's the one who's batshit crazy. Mm-hmm. You know, so it depends a little bit. One is that high self-esteem, man. Is she happy? Is she just genuinely happy? What's her emotional home?
Right.
Lower or ranking low in eroticism. Does that mean that men should never date? No, at a macro level. Obviously, there's some women who are beautiful who just rank a little higher in eroticism. Fine. But find somebody who's not like this. Up and down and up and down. One moment she loves you, the next moment she hates you. No, it's pretty constant. Constant stream of love and happiness.
All right, that's great. You were touching on psychology a bit. Would you say that's like something someone could learn to, or in your field of being a dating coach, do you think that's like a necessity or just really valuable to learn for that type of career choice?
If somebody wants to become a dating coach, or to
do you think that like the examples you were giving in psychology as a dating coach, they made a lot of sense. Do you find that knowing a little bit about psychology...
going into psychology as a career, you mean? Or
is
psychology useful for the realm of social dynamics and relationships?
Yes, the second.
Okay, fair. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because if you don't, you're screwed. If you don't understand why she's acting the way she is, what are common human principles. Again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychotherapist. But I probably, you could say, I'm a, in brackets, practical psychologist. Because I just know exactly, I've had so many experiences that I can tell you exactly if a woman acts a certain way, what's going on. What's the reason? What's the driving force? And even if I can't say exactly what was driving her in that moment, I can very predictably with a high probability, predict the outcome, whether that's worth pursuing or not. So without understanding the dynamics and the psychology of how men and women relate to each other, you're pretty screwed. And It's not a degree in neuroscience, but spend a couple of months studying it, spend a couple of months going into it. And more importantly than that, practical experience, because you can read about it in books, but actually going out there, approaching, because you're going to learn so much more about psychology by getting rejected 50 times, 100 times than you could ever by reading a book. Because if you don't go through the experience of anxiety and the negative winner effect, and you realize how your dopamine plummets and how it goes right back, you will learn so much more by taking action than by reading a book. But again, it's not or, it's and. Yes, you study the theory, you can hire experts, you can learn it yourself, but then you devote yourself to it, and then you add the action-taking component to it. So it's the theory and the taking action. The taking action is always more important than just theory.
Right on. That's a great explanation right there. All right. So we talked about the approaching. We talked about the dating, green flags, red flags. Do you think the bar is the best place where a man can meet a future wife, or
no?
What do you think about that?
No, definitely not. It's a place, and you can absolutely go there and you can meet someone. But online dating is fantastic. Meeting women in shopping malls, bars and clubs. Bars and clubs are a place. Shopping malls, yoga, rock climbing, whatever, jiu-jitsu, your gym.
Right.
Now, you have to be tailored. The way you approach somebody in the gym has to be way more calibrated, and you have to become more a social person in general. You can't just walk up to her in the gym the way you can. In a shopping mall, if you see somebody, you can respectfully introduce yourself. You can say, "Excuse me 2 seconds, I saw you, really cute, so I had to come and say hi. My name is David, who are you?" You shouldn't do that in the gym too much. You can do that once. But if you do that too often, you get a reputation.
Yeah.
And because it's a social circle, because it's the same people everywhere, all the time.
Right.
Sorry, it's the same people in the gym all the time. Whereas in a shopping mall, it's different people all the time. So whenever it's a recurring social circle, it's very important that you become more social in general and your approach is a little bit more indirect, and you build premise or intent or man-to-woman connection later on in the conversation or even via Instagram. But absolutely, you can meet women anywhere during the day. During the day is usually easier, or just dating apps. But bars and clubs are a place, but I wouldn't say they're the best place.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. It's funny, after talking to you, I had a pretty preset on dating apps in a negative connotation. I might have to give them another go.
How so?
After
what were your negative thoughts about it?
My negative thoughts were primarily just how kind of addicting it is, but also in the aspect of actually like relation trying to go out on a date. You just get ghosted, a ton, and then don't get a ton of matches and stuff like that.
Okay. The reason you don't get matches is not because there's anything wrong with your face, okay? Your pictures probably suck. The way you built your profile probably sucks. That's all. There's nothing There's nothing wrong with it. You just need to build it properly. You need to use the apps properly. You need to understand the algorithm. They work if you make them work, right? They work if you make them work. But I'm going to be honest. If you're, in terms of objective attractiveness, in the lowest 5 or 10% as a man, then you're not going to be able to get a lot of results from dating apps. Then you have to use real life approaches where you can really impress her with your personality, okay?
Right.
There's a subset of men who are so ugly, who are born really ugly. Not as a person, but or just like objectively not attractive. Sorry, facial symmetry just wasn't given to you. You really aren't.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry about it. You might not be good on online dating apps. Maybe to bottom 5 or 10%, really only-ish, something like that. And I don't know if it's bottom 5 or 10 or 20%, or 3 or 4, right? Something like that. But it doesn't matter what your face looks like. You can meet women in real life. If you approach confidently and you learn to communicate at a level of emotion, it doesn't matter what your face looks like, or if you're overweight, or this or that. As long as you take care of your appearance, you'll be able to meet somebody. 100%.
Right on. That's great.
That being said, for you though, you should send me a message on Instagram later and I'll give you some tips. Because there's no reason why you shouldn't be cleaning up on dating.
I appreciate that. All right. So, man gets the woman. Prince Charming gets his princess, and marries her. How can he keep her? Keep her. Like I said, marriage is whatever, and 50% of divorce. What steps can he take to keep his woman?
Yeah. So first, choose somebody from a variety of different options. Only make the relationship exclusive after 2 to 3 months. Very important. And then there's a lot of things that go into that. There's a lot that goes into this. But one is you have to get her to invest in the relationship. I'm not talking about finance, but with emotion, with effort. If you don't create opportunities for her to invest, for example, by setting boundaries, or by disagreeing, or by actually letting her invest, she won't value you. If you have a conflict and you're the one who chases after her after she pulls away and she pulls away and she pulls away, you have a conflict, she pulls away, you follow. You have a conflict, she pulls away, you follow. If you keep doing that, she's going to lose respect for you. Mm-hmm. Right? Understanding there's a lot of dynamics that are at play. But the number one thing is choose somebody that you have a high degree of compatibility with and have an utter willingness to lose her. Have an not to lose
utter
her,
willingness
to lose her.
To lose.
Yeah, have an utter willingness to lose her, because she has to realize that you want her but that you don't need her. That's important. She has to feel that. And you're not going to say, and that's not some manipulative stuff. It's the same with her, right? She should have the same attitude towards you. But if she feels that you want her but you really don't need her, she knows that you'd be okay, that mindset is going to transpire. If you're able to communicate your needs, if you make sure her needs are met, be a kind, be a generous person, really invest, really be present, really be loving. All these things really matter. Then don't listen so much to the words, listen to the needs. What are her underlying needs? Not what are the words. Meet the need and the symptom subsides. Because a lot of men get hung up on the particular words women say, and should you take women serious? Absolutely. But it's way more about the underlying needs than about the particular order of sounds she's uttered beforehand. It's about what does she actually need, not what are we talking about here. Because most of the time you have conflict in a relationship, it's surface level. But if you talk about the needs, well, then you can really connect. And if you understand, Tony Robbins says a relationship is a place where you come to give and not to get. That's advanced. But the problem is, if you say that to men who haven't even understood the fundamentals of attraction, then they're going to try to give. And if you just love her more, she's going to run away and she's going to cheat on you. Or she's going to lose interest in you. Right? You can't just give without setting boundaries and giving her a chance to invest. Right? But yeah, if you set boundaries, you give her a chance to invest, you keep your value high, then absolutely give, and try to make her life awesome.
Yeah. Out of the 57 minutes we've just talked, I think that's the best thing, piece of advice that you've said. They've all been gems, but I think that's the best one for sure. And as we're pulling the ship in, I'll ask you one final question. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
I don't know. Would I recommend to myself to go into the relationship with my ex-wife or not? I'm an optimist, and I would say, I don't know if I would... Because I don't know if I would tell myself to not go into the relationship, because there was a lot of suffering involved, and I was like, I probably could have avoided that.
Yeah. If I can rephrase the question,
sure.
What is the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
There's so many, but I can tell you what spontaneously came to me right now when you asked that question. Okay. My father once told me, David, whenever you're in interactions with people, be that in conflict situations, be that when you're given a speech, whatever the case may be, 80% of your focus, of your attention, boom, outward. Be with a person. Be present. 20% meta-level awareness with yourself. Be with yourself. What's going on in you? Rest within yourself. Be with yourself. 20%. 80% outward. Be with a person. Be present. 20% with yourself. And if I had done that, if I had understood a little bit more what was going on inside of me, if I had paid attention to my genuine needs, if I had been more honest with myself as to what I really need, not what I'm telling myself I should need, I should want, not my actual preferences, my actual wants, I probably could have avoided a lot of suffering. So if you're more honest with yourself in terms of what you actually want, you're more with yourself while being present, then I think you can get a lot of happiness if you admit to yourself what you actually want and you go for it.
That's awesome. David, I thank you so much for giving me your time. Learned a lot. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, Sean.
All right. Have a good one.